know what else is fantastic? Well, bad setup, because I don't think a lot of LSU fans would say it's fantastic. But Arik Gilbert officially now leaving the program.
I would say LSU fans are glad that the drama's over.
I do think there's definitely been
because I think they've moved on.
That's been
80% of them have probably moved on to.
Are you talking about fans or the people in that building?
Oh, I think the people in the building have been moved on. I mean, I've been over there, and they're like, we're not like.
But they've still been working on him though. So they've still been like keeping like
but
a
I don't
corner.
think they had high hopes.
Yeah, I do agree that. That's why. That's obviously why last week when there seemed to be some momentum gained last week where people were like convinced that he was going to come back to LSU, and we kind of didn't agree because of that. You talked to people, it didn't seem like they had high hopes. It was definitely sounding like the family was wanting him to stay at home, and lo and behold, here you go.
Yeah, and like we mentioned yesterday, we had a whole tight end discussion, and we never brought his name up. And so I think there's a plan in place. And is he a talented player? Absolutely. There's a reason he's the highest rated tight end that we've really ever seen in modern college football. And he had a really good freshman year. But as we know, he's decided to commit to Florida. That didn't work out. Now he's going to Georgia. And the way he left LSU, it just you don't want to say, you addition by subtraction, because I understand there's some things going on. But
I don't know that you can lose that talent, and
I'm just talking about after the season and the things that you've tried to deal with to try to get him to be eligible to come back to LSU and all of those type of things.
It definitely frees up some resources and some hours in the day that you were spending. I don't think losing a talent of that magnitude is ever like an overall positive, but I do agree that given the context of the situation, the impact isn't as big as it should be, given where his talent is. He is going to Georgia to play wide receiver, though, which I thought was pretty interesting.
That's what he is.
They're not, yeah, exactly. They're not tagging him as a tight end. They're calling him wide receiver. LSU's fine in that department. And the deal is with LSU, what Jake Pizza said since day one is his personnel will be dictated by the philosophy of just getting the best 5 playmakers on the field, right? So if Arik Gilbert was here, I'm sure he would have been one of those top 5 playmakers and he would have been on the field. But it wasn't ever like Jake Peach was like, I have to have this tight end in right now, and now we don't have the talent there, but we're going to still force that position onto the field. Like, no, not as much. You could see some interesting personnel groupings on maybe Cole Taylor or Nick Storrs. And we talk about it. It's not like you're not going to use them, right? We talked about it yesterday. You still have guys there that will play, but maybe now this just puts the finger on the scale for that wide receiver room where you're running a ton of 4 wide. I mean, who did O mention yesterday when we talked about people who've impressed early on? He went down the receiver list, including Jack Besh, a guy who figures to be a tight end in this offense.
You could see them, obviously in 2019, they were an 11 personnel, 95% of the time with 3 tight end or 3 receivers, a tight end, and a back. And you could see them obviously back in that. But you also could see them in 10 personnel.
A lot of 10 personnel.
With 4 receivers, 1 back. And if Jack Besh is part of that 10 personnel, because he's a tweener of he can play tight end, but he's more of a receiver, and you can put him in the slot, you can do some different things. Well, that also opens up some things you can do in the run game, because if it's 10 personnel and the defense is going to sub to that 10 personnel, well, all you have to do is you have Jack Besh in the slot, you motion him in, he cuts off on the backside, or he's a lead on a lead stretch, or whatever it might be, because he's got the size to do that as well. So you can be creative. The personnel doesn't dictate a limitation of what you can do if you have versatile players.
Yeah, and to your point, even the tight end in the Joe Brady offense is not used hand in the dirt a lot of times.
No.
Almost ever, actually. Mario, did y'all end up talking about this yesterday? I know me and you were discussing it before the show, but just the raw amount of receivers that you could see potentially playing this season. What did you end up landing on number-wise?
Yeah, about 8 or 9 guys, realistically. As many as 9 guys I counted have a realistic chance to get snaps, and a lot of snaps.
Which is pretty crazy. And that's not to say that all 9 guys do end up getting a ton of snaps or playing. But what that is to say is that, if you're looking at concentrations of talent and where losing someone would be most impactful, it's just not at the receiver position because you have such a high concentration of talent there. If you had lost an O-lineman, obviously that is massive right now. I think if you lost a linebacker, that's pretty massive right now, or safety. Some of these other positions that you have major questions about. because of Pete's offensive philosophy and all the guys that you do have as pass catchers. Well, the Gilbert thing, like I said, it's never. I'm never going to view it as an overall positive. It's definitely not as hurtful as it could be at some of the other position groups on this team.
No, I mean, look, there was a rumor out there that Ricks, right? Remember when that rumor started? Oh, well, he might be looking to go somewhere else, and obviously that was not, a truthful rumor. But if you're telling me I get to pick which one stayed at LSU, and this isn't even against Gilbert, but it's just the position that he plays compared to a guy like Elias Ricks.
Yeah.
And like having him and Stingley together. So the tight end position, I do think, is one you can overcome, especially when you're talking about a tight end that's more of a receiver because of the depth you have. Now, because when you look at this team, and I've talked about it for months now, that position doesn't make me nervous at all. The running back position makes me way more nervous than receiver or even tight end right now.
Which O did go out of his way to try to maybe assuage some of those running back fears. I think it was like 2 weeks ago now, where now that they had the full group in, he was saying he really likes that group. I'm with you, though. I'm going to remain in prove-it mode with the running back room because with John Emery and TDP, they've been such big names, and you've had flashes, but you've never had the consistent successes that you were hoping for. And maybe, look, running backs can come in freshman year and have success, and we could talk to Hilly about this in hour 3, but I am always hesitant to rely on a true freshman as like being the guy that's going to end up taking over when we haven't seen him play yet. So, yeah, I'm way more concerned about that group.
When you look at 2019's offense, because that's what we're always going to go back to, because it was
that's why they need to do good this year, so we can kind of move
so
on.
dominant. But when you look at the success that they had, obviously they had Jimmys and Joes on the outside and Chase and Jefferson, but also Thaddeus Moss and Clyde Edwards-Helaire were really the oil in that engine because of what they did and the mismatches that they created and what they could do with that personnel in there. Because Thaddeus obviously set the single-season records as far as all the tight end. Sorry, Dick Dixon, if you're listening. He set all those, right?
Yeah.
But he also was a willing blocker, and he did things that created mismatches because you couldn't serve certain personnel depending on who was in the game like you could for so many years when you watched LSU. Right? So many years you watch LSU, here comes the tight end up. Well, here comes Logan Stokes. It's going to be a run. Those type of things.
So is that where shout out Logan Stokes? But so is that where
Bro, man, that's a big dude.
That is a big dude. That's country strong right there, dude. Wait, so is that maybe then where Gilbert's absence will be felt the most? Because Gilbert actually was a pretty good blocker when he wanted to be last year. He was learning. He was young. He was raw, but he was putting his head in
the
there.
run game.
Yeah, in the run game. But I'm talking about like he was that dual threat kind of Thaddeus Moss. You couldn't 100% know what was coming. I don't know that they have that now.
But I hear what you're saying, but also with Thaddeus, you knew everything was up at any given time. Like last year, they were more of a pass-happy team.
Yeah.
So when he was in, it was still going to be 75% of the time, it was going to be a pass. They really struggled to get a push at the line of scrimmage running the football last year. And some of that was because of scheme, right? Some of it was because it was like, man, do they have more than a zone run, right?
Yeah.
Because that was what they specialized in last year. And so some of it has to do with that. But like when Thaddeus, like you ran zone, you ran some power stuff, you ran ISO with him. Like Thad was really good at motioning, backing off the line of scrimmage and running an ISO run where it was him one-on-one with the Mike linebacker and Clyde was cutting off his block. I mean, we could go back and we're talking about a gun run as well. Like you think ISO, you think under center. No, obviously it was a gun run. And Thaddeus, we could pull up a clip against Florida where he does a perfect job of reading the defense, slides inside the guard, goes up on the Mike linebacker, Clyde cuts off of him and goes 60 yards. Like those are the type of things that you have to get out of your tight end position.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And I don't think you have that now.
I don't think you did that last year with Gilbert because he was so good in the pass game. Like you wanted to throw the football more, but it's not doomsday if you have a tight end that can do both.
I just wonder if they do. We'll see. Maybe Best or somebody else can step up. All right, when we get back, let's close out hour number 1. Tom Brady, another Tom Brady card has set a world record. It has been an unbelievable year for people who own Tom Brady rookie cards. Wait to hear this number next here on OTB.